Hi folks, it's me Michaela and welcome back to my channel. I thought I should pop on, before I head out into the cold and the snow, because it's winter in Canada, to get to my little tiny office job. I thought I would hop on here and do a little intro for a new reading vlog, first reading vlog of 2025. I really haven't done much reading vlog work in a while. It's like already almost February and here I am doing my first one, but I'm doing it. And what I'm going to be reading is Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. I have had in my brain, I don't think it's actively been on my TBR, but I had my first thought of reading this series 5-6 years ago. And I was I think it's time I finally read that book that I have been thinking about reading for literal years. And in December, I did buy the first book with its little new cover. These aren't that new anymore, right? The new covers are from 2 years ago at this point. But I figured what time better than now to start a new series to add to my spreadsheet and read Throne of Glass. I've heard very good things about Throne of Glass. I feel like a lot of people think this is Sarah J. Maas's best series of the three, so I'm excited to get into it. I know it is YA, and I have been leaning a little away from YA recently, but I'm just gonna go into it and try not to be too judgmental of the fact that this was written for YA, so I might find parts of it annoying because I'm not a young adult, I'm not a teenager, so sometimes reading about teenagers is annoying. So with that in mind, I'm going into it open mind, open book, read words, that's how that works. So yeah, I'm gonna start this today. I'm gonna let you know my thoughts as I go along. I thought it'd be fun to share, my experience, first time reading Throne of Glass. So I'm gonna get going, trudge my way to work through the snow, hate every second of it, and then start this book during my lunch break. Okay, see you. I've read the first third-ish of Throne of Glass, so I'm 140 pages into it now. And I have to say, this is not exactly what I was expecting from it, but I'm not mad at it. I will say initially my first thought is that this is much more new adult than it is young adult. I kind of thought or heard that this series kind of starts as young adult and then moves into adult fantasy the further into the series you get, but I would not call this young adult, just with the extreme constant sexual innuendos that are happening, and also just the discussions, not extensive discussions, but just kind of it does come up in a conversation very briefly of SA. I would not call this young adult, especially because young adult is for what age groups of 13 to 18. I wouldn't want a 13-year-old to read this book, so I would call this new adult and not YA. Also, the characters in it are more new adult ages. They're 18 to 21, the main characters in this. Yeah, that's my first thing that kind of threw me. I also am a little unsure how I feel about the third person point of view, because I like the third person point of view. However, we're kind of jumping between different people's point of view all in third person, but I don't feel there's enough of a distinction in voice between the characters. You can very easily forget that you switch to another POV because the narrative voice of both characters in the third person POV context is very similar. So I have been kind of struggling with that, and it's kind of making me feel a little iffy. Again, it's just because it's it's unsettling to have to read your book and then you get to a certain point where you're huh? And then you have to go back and go oh, now we're in Kale? Is it pronounced Kale? Kale's POV. This is not Selena's. That kind of switch is just something that kind of takes me out of my reading experience. So it's something that I've been grappling with, dealing with, all that. Those are my initial thoughts on just the general writing. And I'm not saying this is marketed as YA, though. Yeah, no, I don't think this is marketed in YA. I think I saw it in the adult fantasy section. But I always kind of thought it was because the later books in the series were adult, so they just put the like Throne of Glass, the first few books, into adult as well, and like the whole series is adult. But like I've heard that like the first few books are like YA. I wouldn't really call this YA. I do think it has like a little bit of that, how do I put this, I'm just gonna straight out say the annoying teenagerness of like a YA voice is there, and that's nothing against annoying teenagers. It's just that like when you're a decade older than them, you remember how cringy and annoying you were as a teenager, and then reading that behavior, even though it's very normal for teenagers and it's not like unacceptable behavior, it's just that like, I don't know, it's like I'm just far enough away from that point in my life where like it hits me a little too close to home to remember myself like that. I have no idea if that makes sense. But the book is basically, Celaena is apparently the world's best assassin at the age of 18. Actually, before the age of 18, because at the age of 18, she's like in this slave prisoner camp scenario, where then she suddenly, after being there for the year, is like pulled out by the captain of the guard and the crown prince, and they're like, oh my god, the king wants a champion, and clearly it needs to be a very deadly criminal because he needs somebody to like kill people and stuff for him, and there's going to be a competition, and if you win, you get to serve the king for this many years, and then you get to be free. And okay, fun premise, alrighty, I understand why she would take that deal. Not really sure why the prince or any of the other people who are like picking these criminal people to compete on their behalf, like what are they gaining from the situation? It's not told to us. So like, is he just doing this because he's just like, this is fun, I want to win because I want to win? That doesn't make much sense to me. I don't feel like the crown prince or like other, I don't know, like notable people are gonna go like out of their way to try and find the best person and like risk their lives with these deadly criminals being under their care to compete in this random competition for the king just for the bragging rights of saying I picked the person who won. Like, that doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, gonna be honest about that one. Also, like, fully this is a me thing, but then like once they started talking about the competition and stuff, and there's like 24 of them, and there's gonna be like a competition each week or something, it kind of feels weirdly like the Hunger Games meets that one scene in Shrek where the knights are competing to rescue the princess. I don't know why that is the imagery that continues to come to mind, but it is. Like, they talk about this competition to be the king's champion or whatever, and all I can think about is that scene in Shrek. I don't know what that tells you about me, but like that's where my brain keeps going. Things are kind of getting interesting now. Things have picked up. There's kind of this ongoing thing of like Celaena being this like avid reader and like loving to read and reading all of these books. And look, I'm somebody who clearly loves to read books. I have a booktube channel and I sit here every week and talk about books to the internet. I like books. I would say reading is a strong part of my personality and like who I am, but at the same time it feels like shoved down your throat a bit too much. Like, it feels like it's mentioned too often, where she's like, oh, I was just reading books until 4 a.m. again. Oh my god, you told me to read these books, you didn't even ask me how I felt about these. And I'm like, why are we talking about books so much in this plot where it's supposed to be like assassins competing against each other? Like, it just feels like it's too prominent, you know? But like overall, I'm liking it. I'm kind of excited to see like where it goes, because I have like a fear that this competition thing is going to get a little too repetitive if we're just doing like a one little test every week. I'm really hoping that, you know, we kind of speed through it a little bit and we're not too focused on like 13 weeks of tests in a row. And I also feel like this book is probably going to end once the competition ends. Like, I feel like the first book must be like the competition. And then I assume she ends up winning, because there's like, how many other books after this? But I really need to get going to work because I've been yapping way too long. That's the problem when you have the gift of gab. So I'm going to read some more probably like tonight, and I'll give you an update again tomorrow about like my thoughts when I'm like 2/3 of the way through. Okay. Bye-bye. Hello, I'm back. I mean, like, who else would be here? But it is me, in case you thought that randomly some other person was going to show up in this vlog all of a sudden. But I am now like a little over 200 pages into Throne of Glass, and I thought I'd just give you another little update, because
The light is fading fast, and I'm kind of maybe planning on reading like the rest of this book tonight, maybe. It's reading really fast and I'm liking it. It's grown on me. I'm liking it a lot more now than like the first third. I felt like it was like a little slow to kind of get into things. And there's now like this mystery element to the plot that I'm like very much enjoying, because it's also bringing in some more fantastical elements with the mystery element, versus before it kind of felt a little just like ye olden days, but it's a made up world, I guess. There's still like certain things that just kind of irk me because I'm just like a detailed kind of person. There's like a point where she's playing what they call a pianoforte, but like based off of like the time period that it seems this world is based off of, it's probably actually a forte piano and not a pianoforte. And forte pianos like didn't have pedals, and they like describe her using the pedals of the pianoforte, but like forte pianos and pianofortes like didn't have like foot pedals for like a long time. Like they were more likely to have like a hand lever or something. So like that's just like a little thing where like I read it and I was like, I need to Google if this is accurate because I don't think it is. And like I could be wrong, but I believe that the instrument she was playing probably wouldn't have had pedals. There's also like a point where like she's like training for this competition and she's all like, I'm out of shape because I've been imprisoned for a year or whatever. So like Kale is her trainer. Why the captain of the guard is her trainer is like kind of beyond me. Like he's spending basically all day every day with her, and I'm like, dude, don't you have a full-time job that you're supposed to be doing? Like, surely you have more important things to be at than this. But he's her trainer. And then, like, so every day she's, like, going for these runs until she, like, makes herself vomit. She's just, like, overtraining extensively, and it bothers me because, like, that's not how you would increase your fitness quickly, is not by just like beating your body into the ground with activity. And then there's this point where she's like, I've been here for 10 days and I'm still extremely out of shape. It's like, ma'am, yes, you're not going to increase your cardiovascular abilities in 10 days, especially when your plan to increase your cardiovascular abilities is to just run at like full speed until you vomit every day. Like, yeah, I'm shocked that isn't working for you. Like, it's like, am I being petty about these things? Yes, I am aware of that. And, like, I'm still having a lot of fun. This is definitely, like, popcorn reading. It's reading super fast. And I think that it's kind of maybe where, like, the YA idea came from. I will say, like, earlier I said it's not YA, it's like new adult and not young adult. I do think like this book, now that I read more of it, I can maybe see it for like older young adult, like maybe 16 plus, but I would not ever categorize this into YA as the age range. If I had to choose adult or young adult, like there's no new adult, upper YA kind of denominations within those, I just had to choose one or the other. Like this is going into the adult fantasy and not the YA fantasy section of my brain. That's like a thing that I just thought I should clarify a bit more, but I am having fun with it. It's definitely like getting intriguing. I'm definitely not wanting to put it down because it's getting very popcorn ready, exciting, like the plot thickens and all that jazz. So it is also kind of becoming a bit more than I was like initially expecting it to be, which is nice. I would say that's like, so far I would say this is better than ACOTAR, because ACOTAR is just like much heavier on the romance side and this is like much more fantasy leaning. There is like a whole romantic element subplot that's clearly happening that feels very traditional YA fantasy kind of plot. You know, like there's nothing new happening in this in terms of that, but like I said, I'm still having like a really good time with it. I'm actually like very much enjoying it. I would say that I've heard that this is Sarah J Maas's best work, and like so far from only having read half of the first book, I would say yes, because like this is a very like num 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 num, I'm eating this like it's a bag of chips, you know, and like I'm enjoying it. This is like Miss Vicky's black pepper and lime of books, which is like my favorite flavor of chips, just by the way. In case anybody ever wants to buy me chips, get me Miss Vicky's black pepper and lime. Thank you. I'm gonna go read more of this book. I have a coffee, I have a croissant, and I'm gonna read more of this book. And then I'll let you know more of my thoughts as I read more of the book. There's just like certain parts of it I'm suspending my disbelief because it's like, why is she like going around and everybody's trying to fake who she is doesn't make sense when it seems everybody is aware of the current situation. And there's also like, why is she in these fancy rooms? Like, I get that they want her to win, so they want to like feed her well and have her rest and stuff so that she can perform in these like tests in this competition and win and all that. But like, why are they treating her like a lady but she's a prisoner? And I'm still also very confused about what the prince or any of the other nobles who are like sponsoring these people in this competition are gaining from the competition. Like, I still don't know why any of them are doing it. I cannot see any clear motivation for them to want to partake in this activity. Those are my thoughts. Okay, I'm actually gonna go now. I'm actually leaving. I'm gonna see you in the next clip when I've read more, perhaps all of the book. We'll see what happens. Yeah, okay, bye. I'll see you soon. See you soon. Don't go anywhere. I have finished reading Throne of Glass. I finished it yesterday evening, but I did not want to end this video looking like a baby Sasquatch who just woke up from hibernation in the dark. Okay, so we're here in the light of day with an actual outfit on so that I can feel good about myself while talking about the last half-ish of this book. I ended up really liking it, okay? I gave it 4 stars. I want to start reading the second book like right now. Part of me is like, do I go buy the book? Do I go buy the book so I can read it right this second? Like, do I do that? Is that a possible like irresponsible purchase choice because it's like very instant gratification impulse buying? Like, maybe, and so maybe I should hold off on doing that. But that is the feeling I feel. That's the feeling. But I did like this. I feel like the mystery element of this book really helped carry it, because I think if the plot happened without this kind of like mystery leading you up to it, I think that it would have been boring. I think the little spice that the mystery adds is a lot. Sarah J. Maas could have done this plot where it was the competition and Selena discovered things just through like observation and happenstance throughout it, and then you still like end in the same spot. But I think that the mystery element was like key to making this bingeable, and I really liked it. I love a good mystery element. You think, as somebody who loves a mystery, I would read more mystery books, but I don't, because I'm a hypocrite. But I did. I found it quite good. I think that perhaps the romance element was like a little too overplayed and strong, but at the same time, like, this was a YA book, so I'm not gonna be mad at it for that. And I still think that the fantasy was the main plot point of the book. I think that was kind of like my main concern going into this was going to be like much more romantasy than fantasy for me. Like, I've heard people say like this is more high fantasy for SJM over like ACOTAR, but then like I don't know why, but I just like doubted people. Is that mean? Maybe, but like that's the truth. But I have to agree, this is fantasy with romance. This is not romantasy in my personal opinion. I still think this is an adult book more than YA, especially if like the later books get more into the adult age range. Like, this will be shelved as adult on my bookshelves personally. I feel like I'm talking way too much about like just the age range of this book. It's like an odd one to try and categorize. I think that's just why I'm so fascinated with it. But if we're like just talking about the book, I got hooked, and I think the world building and the magic system that kind of has been potentially revealed, because like in the beginning of the book, you know, magic exists, but it's kind of been banned, and so throughout this book you're kind of like discovering that with Selena. And there's clearly also still some things about our characters that like haven't been revealed to us readers that I think is interesting to like kind of hold that back, and I think it was held back well considering this is like that point of view that you're reading from. Sometimes I think like some books make the mistake of the character's point of view you're reading from holding back from the audience in a way that doesn't make any sense, because it's like you're in that person's head and like you don't skip over thoughts. Like, you don't have vague thoughts about events of your life. So if you're like having a POV character and they're like, she thought of the tragedy of her past, or she couldn't think of that anymore, like it's more so like a first person POV thing, but I think it can also happen in third person, that it's like that doesn't make sense. That feels like being very like obviously obtuse because you're trying to hide something from the reader. Nobody in their mind is like, I'm not going to think of that thing anymore and never reference what that thing is, right? Like, am I crazy in thinking that? You, like, your brain would go like, specific event, I don't want to think about that anymore, or I'm thinking about specific event. You don't like weave around vaguely your own thoughts and feelings of what is occurring in your mind. Like, that's not a thing. Anyway, I think that like the keeping the readers obtuse to certain things worked in this one. I think that we didn't necessarily need to reveal it because there weren't like moments where it was like the character is by themselves thinking about some serious thing that we're hiding from the readers, but then we don't say what it is. It was always like in the context of like other conversations and interactions with characters, so I think like that worked. And there's also like certain things, it's not like completely vague. You get like only so much detail of what happened, and you understand that there's obviously more that is to be revealed like in the future, which I think is really good. Am I really like going anywhere with this anymore? This one time I had a thought that was coherent. Apparently it's not today though. I will say, like, my main thing about this book that I couldn't get past, you know, I did just choose to, you know, suspend my disbelief at a certain point, but it is still something that is like, just feels like a huge plot hole to me, is that in this competition, all of these people have sponsors who are some kind of like political or noble person, right? It's like a duke, or like with Selena, it's the prince who's sponsoring them in this competition. But these sponsors, from as far as I can tell from reading this book, have absolutely no motivation or reason to be partaking and being so dedicated to this competition, because it's like, they don't gain anything from winning other than bragging rights. So like, why are any of them choosing to do this? I'm sorry, even if it's like the king is the super mean guy that everybody's a little afraid of, like, people aren't going to be like, yeah, I'm gonna just, you know, put all this time, money, and effort into sponsoring somebody who's highly dangerous for this competition just because the king wants to be amused, and like no other purpose. It's kind of like shown that like maybe like they have bets with each other and stuff, but that's still not enough motivation for all of them to do it, right? They're not gaining anything from it other than the possibility of being like, oh, the person I chose won. So why would they do it? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And that's kind of like the entire catalyst for the plot of this book. So the fact that that doesn't make sense to me really felt like a big deal, even though like when I say it out loud, it like doesn't feel like that big of a deal, because it's not like the motivation of the main character is flawed, but it does feel like a flaw in the book, because I feel like you very easily could have just come up with some kind of political gain that would result from having the person you sponsor win this competition, so that it made sense that all of these people wanted to pick someone to participate in it. That way it would make sense that all of these people wanted to pick and sponsor somebody to participate in the competition, because they would also gain something from that personally, other than just like feeling proud of yourself because you picked the one who won. Maybe I missed something, but I literally like got to a certain point when I first started questioning this, and I went back and I kind of like skimmed the part of the book that I read already to kind of see like, did I miss that? But I didn't see it being mentioned anywhere, like what was to gain for the sponsors. I have to say, I think my other main issue with the book is that Selena is like always described as being the best assassin in the world at the age of 17, and like she was known for being amazing at killing people, I guess, and you know, like she's so skilled and blah 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 blah. And the thing is that it's only ever like told to us. The farther the book gets on, it is shown a bit more, but you spend a lot of the book with people just like telling you she's really good, telling you she's the world's best assassin, telling you that she's really dangerous, and like her giving all these threats that end up being empty because she can't actually like go through with the threats she's giving, or else, you know, her whole plan of like earning her freedom is like thrown out the window. So it like feels kind of, it doesn't feel real. Like, it's hard to believe that about her when it's not being shown to us. Like, she hasn't done anything that proves she's the world's best assassin and is extremely skilled. They like have it so that it's like, oh, she's really good at throwing knives and she throws knives really well. But like, that doesn't necessarily prove that she's like dangerous and lethal, right? Obviously there's like the implied nature of being extremely good at archery and throwing knives and like scaling a wall that you would be lethal, but it doesn't like outrightly prove it to you as the reader. So when you go through like a lot of the book with everybody just being like, she's so dangerous, she could kill anybody at any second with anything, and it's like, could she? Because I don't actually know that, because like you don't really get any of her backstory. And I understand that like part of it does like humanize her more, that makes her more likable, but then again it's like you can't just like say somebody is something and then not prove it in a book until like the end of the book. Like that just feels wrong. I'm just supposed to believe you? Like maybe you've been lying this whole time and you're gonna fall off that wall. I don't know, it feels weird to be like, well, you haven't murdered anybody in this book, so how am I supposed to believe that you are a really good murderer? But like kind of, how am I supposed to believe that you're a really good assassin if we haven't seen any proof directly in the book and the plot of you being a really good assassin? So like those are like the two things that I kind of had issues with. But although I like do feel that they're kind of like important points to mention and important things that probably should have been adapted and shown better, I don't think they're deal breakers for the book. You can still very much enjoy this book while knowing that these two things that really bother me are happening. Clearly, because I gave the book 4 stars. That's kind of where I sat with both of those things. Is that like it just felt incomplete in a way. It felt a little bit like, oh, I don't need to do these two things because you're just gonna believe me when I say it. It feels like you kind of think that your audience is too dumb to notice that these are things that probably should be established in the book better. I don't know, like if maybe I'm like being too harsh with that. Those are my feelings, and am excited to get now to Crown of Midnight. Part of me is like, do I just buy the next book and then like extend this vlog to also reading the whole series? But like, no, I'm gonna end this vlog here because I've been yapping long enough about Throne of Glass, my first read of Throne of Glass. If you would like to hear my thoughts on the rest of the series, let me know. I definitely would consider making a reading vlog for the next book or the rest of the book in the series, if that's something people are interested in. But for now, this is the end of this video, so if you like it, make sure to give it a like, give it a little thumbs up. If you happen to like me, consider subscribing. I'll be happy to have you. Let me know down below, have you read Throne of Glass? Have you read any other Sarah J Maas books? What are your thoughts on the books? Do you like them? Do you hate them? Do you think they're overhyped? All that jazz. And with that, I hope you're having a wonderful day today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye!